The Cascade Pass trailhead is located in the North Cascades past Marble Mount at the far end of the Cascade River Road. The Cascade Pass Trail is one of the shortest and easiest ways hikers can get to see spectacular North Cascades scenery. For that reason, this is one of the most popular and busiest day hikes in the North Cascades National Park. So go midweek if you can, or at the very least get an early start. The impressive views of peaks and glaciers right at the parking lot are just the warm-up act to what is to come ahead. The 7.5-mile round-trip trail starts out zigzagging up a steep hillside, then traverses to the pass with grand views of glaciers and surrounding peaks. Peaks that will be constant companions clear to the pass include Johannesburg Mountain, Cascade Peak, and the Triplets. The trail immediately plunges into the deep forest canopy and zigzags up the steep hillside. The trail eventually emerges from the forest, where you can look back to the glacier-covered Mount Torment and down the valley to Hidden Lakes Peak, the Triad, and El Dorado Peak. Johannesburg Mountain and Cascade Peak continue as constant companions. The morning sun continues to march across the Triplets on the right and Mix-Up Peak on the left. As the sun warms the glaciers, you may hear a sound like thunder as ice begins to melt and crack. About halfway to the pass, the trail levels out and becomes more enjoyable. The trail traverses the steep hillside and continues towards the pass below Mix-Up Peak. And finally in the distance, you can see Cascade Pass. As we approach the pass, think of early Native Americans who also walked along this way, a major route through the rugged mountains. In the early 1800s, this route was explored by fur trader Alexander Ross, and later was used by gold and silver prospectors. Take your time exploring around the pass. Look up the ridge to Mix-Up Peak and enjoy the hillsides ablaze with autumn color. Another popular trail leads some 28 miles to the town of Stehekin. With thousands of boots pounding this area every year, the National Park Service reminds hikers to stay on established paths to avoid damaging the delicate environment. Just off the trail at the pass is a small picnic area. Overnight camping is not allowed at Cascade Pass, but with special and sometimes difficult to obtain permits, you can continue on to Sahali Arm and Pelton Basin where camping is allowed. Due to the high volume of hikers, a latrine has been installed at the pass. This latrine gets my vote for best scenic view. For the return, simply retrace your steps back down the same trail, enjoying the spectacular view of the valley. At one point, you can look down and see the parking area, but don't be fooled. There is still over an hour more to hike. Along the way, you may see wildlife such as pika and marmots, deer and black bear. The National Park Service reminds hikers to never feed any wildlife. The trail follows the curve of the mountain until the midway point and then begins its zigzag downward plunge. It may seem like the trail crews overdid things with the number of switchbacks, but it does make going downhill a lot easier on the knees. Our trail ends some 5 hours and 9 minutes later with lots of photo stops along the way. Typically, by mid-morning the parking lot has filled to overflowing. Trail specs. Round trip was about 7 miles. Beginning elevation was 3,400 feet, ending elevation 5,370 feet, total elevation gain was 1,970 feet. USGS quad map, Cascade Pass. This is Mark Weitzel saying thanks for hiking with me today, and I'll look forward to seeing you on our next trail.